Hey everyone, Denis Villeneuve was interviewed and he spoke about the idea of a Dune trilogy. In this video we will be exploring exactly what was said and what it could mean for the future of the Dune franchise.
Dad, what if I'm not the future of House Atreides?
If you like these videos, please don't forget to give me a like rating. It helps YouTube's algorithms find my videos and shares them with more people, and it's one easy way to help the Dune community grow. If you like these videos, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe and click the bell so that you can be first to be notified of new videos. Now that is out of the way, let's get straight into this episode.
A great man doesn't seek to lead. He's called to it.
So I've been aware that there has been this idea of a Dune trilogy floating around for some time now, and I wanted to talk about it for a while. But now that we have concrete evidence that Denis is considering this, now is the perfect time to talk about this. So Denis has spoken to Total Film and he spoke to Radio Canada. This was translated in a Collider article. And I think to understand the possibility of a Dune trilogy, we have to analyze both of these interviews and join them together. So the first question is there going to be a Dune Part 2? In the interview, Denis Villeneuve was very confident that there is. He talks about shoveling some things into Dune Part 2 for the mental sanity of everybody. And in this he's referring to Fade Rautha, which seems to suggest he only appears in Part 2. Villeneuve even says that the fade in David Lynch's Dune, played by Sting, where he appears in the flamboyant underpants, is the most powerful image. So it seems that he's just as much of a fan of the David Lynch movie as anybody else. The article goes on to say that Legendary and the distributor Warner Brothers have embraced the idea of a two-part Dune adaptation right from the start, which is something we already knew. Villeneuve wanted to shoot the movie simultaneously, but they said it was too expensive and too big, and the studio wanted to see what would happen with the first one before they started moving on to the second. So the idea to shoot it in two parts separately, not back to back, was the studio's idea. Villeneuve then speaks more about Dune Part 2. There's no such thing as Dune 1 and Dune 2. It's Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2. And you may think that this distinction isn't something so big, but I think there is a good reason for it. Dune 1 implies the first Dune story is done. Dune 2 implies Dune Messiah. So saying Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2 means that could cover the first Dune book, and Dune Part 3 could cover the second book, Dune Messiah. So going back to the idea of Dune Part 2, Villeneuve says that we have been hearing in the past few decades that it's not possible to adapt this book as in Dune, and that it's an impossible task. I think that in the back of the mind of the studio is still the same. So the first thing was to prove that there was a beautiful, popular movie that can exist, and I think that I proved that. Everybody at Warner Brothers and Legendary, they're 100% behind the project. They feel that it would need a really bad outcome at the box office to not have a Dune Part 2, because they love the movie, they are proud of the movie, so they want the movie to move forward. I'm very optimistic. Denis Villeneuve is also writing the screenplay for Dune Part 2. So it seems the relationship between Warner Brothers and Denis is okay, is healthy, is moving forward. So those are good signs for Dune Part 2. So in the Collider article, it mentions that Denis Villeneuve says, "There is Dune's second book, Dune Messiah, which could make an extraordinary film. I always saw that there could be a trilogy. After that, we'll see. It's years of work. I can't think of going further than that." So this confirms that Dune Part 1 and Part 2 cover the first book by Frank Herbert, and the potential third film would be based on Dune Messiah. I happen to think that Dune Part 2 is going to cover a little bit of Dune Messiah as well, perhaps. Or at least Dune Part 2 could tease Dune Messiah, and then we would hopefully get a third film. But all of these three films would be classified as the Paul Atreides Trilogy. And this is something that has been spoken about for a while now, particularly by Robert Burnett. And I wish I had talked about this earlier because I fully believed that the Paul Atreides Trilogy was real, because Robert Burnett is a trusted industry guy. So I always believed that this was the plan all along. Cast and crew who have worked on Denis Villeneuve's Dune have also spoken about the possibility of a Dune trilogy. In particular, creature and character designer on the film, Carlos Huante, who was interviewed on the Who's Nick channel.
He didn't sign on unless they were going to do at least 2 movies of this.
Right, which means that there's probably going to be 3.
So this is something that has been in the minds of the cast and crew since the start of the Dune project. This idea of more than 2 movies, at least a trilogy. And Rebecca Ferguson and Javier Bardem have been hounding Denis Villeneuve, according to these interviews, to make Dune Part 2. They just cannot wait to film the second part. So this is a short overview of the Paul Atreides Trilogy, what we're going to see. So if you do not wish to be spoiled by the potential idea of this, please watch another video of mine. So the idea of this Paul Atreides trilogy has always made sense to me, and it seems to have made sense to Denis too. The first 3 books technically focus on Paul, his rise, and his character arc. And Paul's character arc is mainly covered in the books Dune and Dune Messiah. And then in Children of Dune, his children and Alia take over. So that's why it makes sense to include Dune Messiah in Denis Villeneuve's Paul Atreides trilogy. So Dune Part 1 entails Paul Atreides and his house arriving on Arrakis. He begins to go through these changes, he becomes more prescient, and he assumes the role of the Mahdi of the Fremen. Of course, all of this is after the fall of House Atreides on Arrakis. Then Paul fights Jamis and wins, and earns the respect of the Fremen, which then allows him to assume the Mahdi role more comfortably. And that's just in Dune Part 1, and that's where it will end. Then in Dune Part 2, he's fully comfortable in the Mahdi role as Paul Mu'addib, or Usul, his Fremen siege name. I believe Dune Part 2 is going to open with the gladiator fight with Fade. It's going to include the Razia raids against the Sardaukar and the Harkonnen on Arrakis. He grows more in power. Then we get the threat of Fade and his character and things of that nature. Part 2 will also have the spice orgy, and we'll see Paul and Chani connecting even more. It's going to have the Water of Life sequence of Jessica taking the Water of Life, and also of Paul taking the Water of Life. And something tells me that that is where Dune Part 2 is going to end, when Paul wakes up after taking the Water of Life. But that's just a hunch. I think if we look at the pacing of Denis Villeneuve's movies, there may be too much in the rest of the Dune book to fit into Dune Part 2 as a movie. So I get the feeling that the final battle will be in Dune Part 3 and include the rest of the story of Dune Messiah, where Paul's empire is established. So of course Part 3 is going to be like the Empire Strikes Back of the Star Wars trilogy, the darkest of the 3 films. And we're really going to see a change in Paul. We're going to see him become a much more serious and solemn character, while still trying to retain his humanity. But of course, one of the most important themes will be his love for Chani and his connection to her. Which is why all the talk of Chani being a protagonist in Dune Part 2 made sense. And even though some articles tried to say that she was actually replacing Paul and she was the protagonist of Dune Part 2, which isn't true, she still remains a protagonist of Dune Part 2. She's still very much an important protagonist or an important character in Dune Part 2. There can be more than one protagonist in a movie or story. Harry Potter is a quick and easy example. Judging by his words, Denis Villeneuve even seems open to the idea of making more beyond Dune Messiah, to perhaps adapt Children of Dune. Hopefully we'll get at least 3 Dune films. But what do you think? Where do you think Dune Part 2 is going to end? And what do you think we'll see in Dune Part 3? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. If you like these videos, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and click that bell so that you can be first to be notified of new videos. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a channel member, where you'll receive access to exclusive content, secret content and more. And until next time, see you soon.